Everyone, I'm Chris, and Chris is a video game addict. What was it like? What happened? And what is it like now? What it was like was bad. um, I remember very clearly at some point in my life, I made a decision to stop feeling feelings. I was about 12 years old or so, maybe a little younger. And I remember one day I was in the car with my mother, and she was talking about something, and I just could not take her complaining about this particular subject anymore. And it was really injurious for me to listen to that and be part of that. Really what she was doing was she was complaining about my father and brother and talking about how the sky was falling. And I just, I was her sounding board and her way to vent, as a young child and on. And so I just couldn't, at 12 years old, I decided I couldn't take that anymore. Now, why is that important? How does that relate to this disease? So I dealt with, and I still deal with, family of origin issues and family issues and psychological issues and blah, 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 all that stuff. And, that definitely made me want to get out. It gave me a situation that I really did not enjoy. It gave me some pain. It gave me some problems. But I don't think it made me an addict. I think at that point in my life when I made that decision, I don't know what it was. I kind of think it was more spiritual than anything else. But I believe there's a genetic and generational component to this disease. But at that point, I made that decision that I was not going to feel feelings anymore. And that's the point at which I think I became an addict. Because at that point in time, I started to really not just play my video games more, but I started to abuse them. I always loved video games. I remember playing what I think is my first video game at around age 3. Really what I remember is my brother unwrapping the Sega Genesis that he unwrapped. And I remember this feeling of awe and delight and wonder. And I remember playing games, and it was kind of like all of a sudden people brought to life the drawings, the fantasies, the ideas that I had in my head. Someone had taken those and gave me the ability to act them out, to manipulate them, to have this fantasy world at my fingertips, literally. I was completely enthralled from the moment I first played. But I had other interests. I read a lot. I was a bookworm as a kid. I enjoyed school. I enjoyed learning. I liked my family. I liked playing outside every now and then. And the funny thing was, that definitely decreased over time. I liked going outside, I guess, once I got there, but there was always resistance to me leaving the home. I was definitely an introvert. Once I made that decision that I wasn't going to feel feelings anymore, I saw myself go downhill, really quickly. I got into high school shortly thereafter. My gaming went from and also I got online games. I got the ability to play first-person shooters online with my friends at the end of middle school. So, my addiction was getting ready to take off a little bit there. I got the new supply, and then the demand came, right? Because I went into high school, and that was a very difficult time for me. I was very socially awkward. I was afraid. I didn't know how to be comfortable and to be part of a group there, or how to kind of survive socially in that environment. I got picked up quick, and even though I was not a small kid, I was and not very large either. I've never been taller than 5'10", and I was always on a sports team, which kind of kept me from being too, picked on physically, I guess. I was always kind of the butt of the joke at school, and I never knew how to deal with that. And the tools I was taught for dealing with that sort of thing were just turn the other cheek, don't worry about it, ignore them, and that was pretty much it. Be the bigger man, which I really didn't know how to do. I realize now that that's not something that I can will myself towards. I can't really make, insults just deflect off me. I can just, when it happens, it happens. When they mean nothing, they mean nothing. When they hurt, they hurt. I can't change that. But so in high school, I started gaming about 4 hours a week while being a 3-sport athlete. So what that meant is that I slept on the bus, and I slept at school. So those are pretty much the two places that I slept. I did not really sleep at home. I'd stay up really late to game. And I remember junior year, we had to write a paper. It was a 15 to 20 page paper. It was a junior year thesis in history. And I pretty much disregarded all the deadlines that we had. And I just would, last minute, I would splurge and, write this paper last second, get to the deadline. And somehow managed to eke out the draft that wanted. First it was like a 3-page draft, then it was a 6-page draft, and before then it was an outline. Always small pieces of the big project. And finally, we got to like the week of the final project being due. This 15-page paper, 20-page paper, whatever. And I remember the night before it was due, going and sitting down at my desk and thinking to myself, okay, it's like 6 p.m. right now, 7 a.m. tomorrow, I have to leave to go to school. I've got 5-6 pages written. I have an outline. I can do this. I may have to stay up all night to write this paper, but I can write this paper in that time frame. I can easily write that in that time frame. I just have to sit down. I just have to start working. And I sat down, and the moment I sat down on my laptop, a really curious thing happened. I said, you know what? I'm just going to play for 5 minutes. I just got home. I just finished dinner. I just got back from practice. I just want to take 5 minutes to unwind first. Once I get relaxed and my mind gets eased up, then I'll be able to write better. And an hour later, I walked over to the bathroom, started thinking to myself, yeah, shit, I just took like an hour break and I didn't mean to. I've really got to stop procrastinating. I just got to start doing this. And I went back and I sat down at my computer. 2 or 3 hours later, I got up and went to the bathroom again, and I started thinking, okay, wow, now I really have to do this paper. I'm really starting to get afraid that I can't do it. And then, of course, I went back to the computer, and I think for, an hour, 2 hours, I think I actually worked. And then, of course, I decided I need another break. I gamed again. And then I realized it was about 2 or 3 in the morning, and I was panicking. I was freaking out. I was really freaking out. And I remember trying to print a rough draft or, some amount of this paper, which of course was nowhere near the length requirement at like 4 in the morning, and in my mom's office at home. And of course she woke up and she heard me printing and, probably heard me crying, honestly. And I just remember her freaking out, asking me what was going on and lying, telling her that I'd lied to her for the past 6 months, that I'd not met any of the deadlines. My paper was not written. And that was kind of like the harbinger of my gaming addiction. That was like the first really big time that I saw that this, I didn't even think it was an addiction, and I didn't think gaming was the problem. But looking back, that was the first really big consequence of my addiction. First obvious one. And like any good addict, I somehow finagled my way out of the punishment that should have come with that, the consequences. I should have gotten an F in that class probably, and should not have gone on to the next grade. But somehow I got an extension on the paper. I managed to get like a B minus in the course, and my GPA was fine. But fast forward to college, I had no restrictions now, and I went through a period where I tried to change myself, where I really tried to be a partier, because I thought if I partied and if I hung out with people outside of, in what I thought was reality, and I face to face in person, if I just hang out with people and party face to face, things will get better. I'll feel okay. I'll enjoy life. I'll be happy. And once I'm happy, I won't have to game so much. I won't have to stay in my room all the time. I won't have to be sucked into a screen. And of course that wasn't true. 3 months into partying and trying to hang out with people, I kind of got tired of that. I started gaming again. I pretty much wrapped college up into a couple sentences. What happened was I would repeatedly isolate. I would say I was going to do the work. I would start doing the work, and then I would need a break, and then I would take a break, and the breaks got longer and longer and longer until the breaks were not really breaks. I was breaking to do work for 20 minutes, an hour. And then I'd realize how much work I had to do or how much work I hadn't done, and I would panic and I would need to game again. I failed out of school once, and then 2 more times I almost failed out of school, and I kind of withdrew, did little things to keep myself from going into complete failure at school and from getting kicked out. And in my junior year of college, I had like a 1.8 GPA, and I was failing out again. And I realized that I was just so at the end of my rope. I was gaming for about 3 days at a time. I was in a lot of pain. Anytime I stopped playing my games, I was watching videos of my games. I was living in a fraternity house, and I, wasn't seeing any of my friends. They wouldn't see me. I wouldn't shower, wouldn't shave. It was pretty intense for me at that time. But the irony is that that was not my bottom. My bottom was a full year later. I withdrew from school. I saw a therapist. I went through a bunch of stuff and got told I had an addiction. I didn't believe the people who told me. And took me another 9 months, 10 months to actually come to terms with the fact that I had an addiction. So that was 2012 when I finally got to this group. And so that's what brought me here. What brought me here was that I just could not manage. I was trying to get back into school. I was trying to do it again. I told myself that I would never game again. And a month later, I didn't even remember I'd made the promise. I just gamed anyway. It didn't matter. The room spun. I sat down. I just opened up a game and I started playing. And I noticed that when I stopped playing for a period of time, I realized this fog just lifted suddenly. Like after a few days, all of a sudden, this wave of mental fog did, and I could see things clearly. I realized I was breaking vows to myself that I said I'd never break. I realized I was throwing my life away again, which is another thing I said I'd never do. I said I wasn't an addict because I could stop when I wanted to, and I could play as much as I wanted to. I didn't have to go back to it. I remember I broke down and cried when I realized I couldn't do that anymore. I smashed a mouse with a ball peen hammer, and even then I didn't think I was a gaming addict. It was really when I came to this meeting of CGAA, I heard people say, I'm a video game addict, and they started describing things that I had never told anyone. They were telling my story, and they were saying things about my life that I had never, ever told anyone, things that I said I would never allow anyone to hear. It really opened me up. I remember crying the first time I was at a meeting, sobbing. I remember the identification was just enormous. A little while after that, I got a sponsor. I started working the steps. I did not stay sober that entire time period. I did some things I realize now, or I realized later. I was playing games on my phone. I wasn't really sober. I wasn't really free from my video game addiction. I wasn't playing the first-person shooters that had brought me to my knees. I wasn't playing the real-time strategy games or the fight games or I'm a junkie. Whatever you give me, my drug of choice, my game of choice is what you got. To adopt a saying from people I've known who were in AA. But I wasn't playing those games that I thought were really video games. I was playing games on my phone. I thought those weren't video games. I realized 6-7 months into sobriety or into recovery that those were video games. I had to stop those. So I did. And even later on down the line, I had a slip. A friend emailed me something and I played with it for a minute and I realized, oh my God, I'm playing a video game. So the road in sobriety for me, the road in recovery has not been smooth. It's been very rocky. It's been very tough. But what has kept me sober, what keeps me sober now, has been continuing to come to meetings. I've pretty much always done about a meeting a day, not always in this fellowship. I'm a member of other 12-step fellowships now. I've realized I have other addictions. I have other areas that I need help in. I'm part of ACOA, part of Al-Anon, and other 12-step groups like those that help me deal with my family of origin issues. And I really needed healing from those. But what I always need as a big baseline is I need to remain sober. If I don't remain sober from this addiction, I don't have the ability to go anywhere. If I'm not sober here, I can't process emotion. I can't really get much out of therapy. I can read all the nice non-12-step literature that I want, but it's really falling on deaf ears until I get sober again. That's been my experience in the past. So now what do I do to stay sober, since that's my primary concern? Well, I have a sponsor. I work the steps with my sponsor, and I've made my amends and making my amends still. I did my 4th step with my sponsor, which was a wonderful experience going through that. I mean, painful and difficult, but extremely eye-opening. I've come to meetings. I've been of service to other people. I've tried to be of service. I have a service position in this fellowship. I have sponsees as well. I try to sponsor people. I try to offer what was given to me. I try to offer freely. What was given to me was understanding, love, compassion, and kindness. And I try to offer that to a newcomer every time. What was also given to me is knowledge of the steps and direction on how to work them. And it's something that's an ongoing process in my life, is that I try to really apply the principles of the program to what I'm going through now. And it's incredibly amazing how simple the steps are, how simple, dealing with resentment and dealing with fear are. Before I came to this meeting, I was praying about my fear. I was asking my higher power to remove the fear from me, direct my attention to what he would have me be. What does he want me to do, say, or think? And the message I got was just relax. It's okay. And that sort of communication with a higher power is something that I never would have had when I came here. I was a staunch atheist when I came here. I hated the idea. The word God, or the word higher power, which I thought was a thinly veiled excuse for the word God, just brought like extreme anger. I was just such a angry atheist when I came here. I just could not stand you talking about the word God. If someone said it, it was like, of course, I was a complete people pleaser and very nervous and frightened. So, I mean, they're the same thing, very frightened. So I wouldn't say those things. I was very concerned with what you thought of me. I wouldn't say these angry things. I would just think them very loudly and hope that you would hear somehow. But I remember one woman at a meeting talking about a parking lot God, and I lost it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. I can't deal with this stuff anymore in these 12-step programs. Talking about a parking lot God, you pray, you have to find a parking spot, and you're serene. It's nonsense. This is just BS. And I was thinking those thoughts for the next 2-3 hours. And I remember sitting alone in my bedroom, my feet up against the wall, looking at the ceiling, thinking to myself, gosh, these people are so stupid. Who believes in God? Who believes in God? This is so dumb. Gosh, who believes in God? And the thought just cut through my thinking. And that thought was, Chris, if it works so well for these people to believe in God or something, can't that work for you too? Why can't that help you? And looking back, I believe that's the voice of my higher power now, because it was like I could hear a pin drop. It just silenced all the other thought in my mind for a moment, and then it came flooding right back in. And I said, "No, it's this nonsense. I don't believe in God. This God doesn't exist. I can never believe in a higher power. But it's nonsense." And but the next day, I started to pray. And that's been the gift of this program, is that people told me, act as if, which doesn't mean lie and act like I'm fine when I'm not fine. It doesn't mean act like I'm, a millionaire when I have $5 to my name and buy stuff on credit, which is what I wished it meant. It's meant take the actions that a spiritual person would take if I was a spiritual person. Act like I was a spiritual person. Take those actions and try to do them. Act, and the feelings will follow. Right action into right thinking. And I started praying, and all of a sudden I started feeling this connection. I started getting some moments of peace and a serenity. I started praying for the people that I hated, and I stopped hating them as much. Some people I still hated a lot, but I kept praying for them. I kept inventorying and kept writing resentments and giving them up, and going to my sponsor and going to other people and saying, listen, I hate person X because they did Y, and this is what injured me, and these are the defects of character. I need God to remove these. And if you have any hangups about the word God, I did when I got here. The way that I define God now is not as a big bearded guy in the sky who suspiciously resembles Zeus, and may or may not throw lightning bolts. That's outside of the question. The way that I define my higher power is God is just a really convenient 3-letter word for something I don't have a good short description for. It's a really good way to just bottom line this concept that there's something much larger than me, something much more powerful than me, something that loves me, something that seems to be connected to me and other people, and something that's been in these rooms and has allowed me to get sober and to hear things that I could not hear anywhere else. I've heard things in this room, both that I literally never heard before, and both that I had heard before, but they'd fall on deaf ears. I couldn't listen, I absorb. And the beauty of this program and of you guys sharing your experience, strength, and hope with me is that I've stayed sober off that. I've managed to listen. I've managed to change. I'm a different man now. I graduated from college. I went through a master's program. I mean, you're talking to a guy who failed out of college nearly 3 times. Guys like me don't get to do that. I've had relationships, I didn't really date before I got sober. I've dated in sobriety, not much, but I have. I'm currently in the shop for repairs, but that's a story for another time. But I've done things because as a result of being sober and working this program, that I would not have gotten to do these things if I wasn't, and I'm immensely grateful for that. It's all come as a result of me doing the next right thing, putting first things first, and just following my feet, coming to the meeting, following direction from my sponsor. So thanks for letting me share.